Hi everyone, and welcome to this integration guide for how you can consume the NGDIL demo with your own backend. So if you are lacking background here, the NGDIL demo is a demo for self-sovereign identity in an education-focused use case. So the demo, if you're not familiar with it, this video would contain a lot of references to the demo, so I would recommend you kind of go through the demo once using any compliant wallet, and then you come back to this video so that you are aware of the context in terms of when I'm speaking about very particular cases in the demo, so you're aware of that. All right, plugging in your own backend with your own OpenID server is as straightforward as just these 3 steps. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. So the first thing that you need to do is to clone this repository. So I have this repository cloned, for example, right here. And then you need to tweak the env. So we have a sample.env. I've just copied the sample.env. And if you just want to use Tangle Labs issuer, you can just fill out these fields, and then after this you would be good. But otherwise, if you want to plug in your own backend, you only need to fill these 2 fields, with the public base URI being where we would be able to locate your API, and the public client URI being where you would be able to locate the front end. So this needs to be something which we put inside of requests, so these endpoints need to be public. Otherwise, your OpenID requests may or may not work, depending on how your network is configured. So just be sure that another device must be able to access this URI. All right. So once you've changed this to whatever whatever place your API is hosted at, you can start working on your API. So your API just needs to comply to this API specification, which we've mentioned right here. And it is not too complicated whatsoever. It's as simple as 4 REST endpoints and also exposing an SSI endpoint for session events. So I'll just give you an example. So the first thing that this API needs to have is an endpoint for /psyop where the front end would post, and this would essentially just create a psyop request. So all this does is returns a URI, which is a psyop request, which shows that what URI needs to go in the QR. So underlying our NGDIL demo is Tangle Labs OpenID QR library, which is very, very straightforward to consume. It is a web component, so that means that it's completely platform and framework agnostic. So as long as there's HTML, then you can plug this in. And it takes a request URI, so that's your request URI, which would be provided from here. And it takes an event stream URI, so that's the event stream which we need to expose right here. And at the end, it just takes a size. Now size is optional, and size is just your height/width in pixels, since a QR is square, so it's just a single property. And then the SSI endpoint, as also mentioned here, needs to comply with the standard where it sends a status which is either success or failure, a type which is either VP, ID, or VC. So VP means an OID for VP request, VC means an OpenID for VCI request, and ID means a PSYOP request. So essentially we'll be sending events which say that either something has succeeded or failed, and you can listen to it by adding document.addEventListener and then listen for OpenID QR success or OpenID QR failure, and the event details would be exactly this data right here. All right, so let's head back to this endpoint again. So with PSYOP, you just get an URI, and then the front end consumes it using NGDIL OpenID QR library, and that is the first endpoint. The second endpoint is to create an OpenID for VP request URI, and this one we want you to send a presentation stage. So the presentation stage essentially is to help you to identify which presentation definition to serve. So Dominique enroll course, for example, is the initial presentation definition where Dominique has to share her school course certificate and national ID when enrolling in KW1C in the very, very first Dominique flow. And the second is when she has to share her newly earned course certificate of study to Open Jobs Network Dominique apply for a job is when she has to share her national ID or school course certificate to Big Business Corp. And Peter and Imani log in are when they just have to present their staff or employee IDs to log into their respective dashboards. The endpoint for creating a starting offer takes credentials as a string array, and these are just credential configuration IDs that you've provided in your OpenID backend. So all these would do is create an OpenID request with a credential offer, just using these as you've passed them. Then you can also generate the offer for a single credential. So what I mean by here is that there are cases where a user is only getting a single credential instead of a batch credential, as which is expected here. So the endpoint takes, again, the credential configuration ID, but instead of taking a string array, it's just a string. So future engineer, all-round carpenter, marketing, these are all certificates which Dominique can earn, and staff ID is what's issued by Big Business Corp to her. And then again, at the end, you get a URI, which is OpenID for VCI compliant. And as described, you would also have to expose an SSI stream where our front end is able to watch for events being completed by the wallet on the back end. So this is to update and propagate the front end state. Again, we are using OpenID QR library here, which you can use either standalone or you can use with our platform. And it again just makes it very simple to manage state with an OpenID QR. So that has been it about the integration guide. It is really this simple. All you have to do is you just follow the steps as I told you. So I already have a compliant API running as an example, and I'll just start that up. Sorry about that. And I can also start my client, make sure it's available on the correct IP. You just have to make sure that this is actually reachable and is mentioned here. And then I can open this up and experience the journey with NGDIL using your very own custom backend. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have fun playing about the NGDIL demo with your own backend implementations. We would love to see them in action.